So, because you're contractually obligated as an internet person to start these videos with, hey guys, it's Wackadoo69. Well, here we go. Hey guys, it's Chris, aka C Lils, aka Bison Davis, aka Big L, aka Mr. Lily, aka Kudissa Sunsengnim, aka Tofi Montana, aka L Train, aka No One Hates Shirts versus Skins More Than Me. Anyway, I'm back in Montana, or the former Montana. My parents have passed away, dogs too. I'm on blood pressure pills. My wife is funnier than me, and my stepdaughter knows me as the guy from downstairs that eats her cinnamon toast crunch when she goes to bed. And I know one thing since having adulthood finally foisted upon me: Tim Sheehy is a creep. I don't want to hear one more native Montanan talk about newcomers to the state. If you vote for this carpet-bagging, racist, classist, and classless Tim Sheehy, you don't get to play that card. No one is less Montanan than Tim Sheehy, besides maybe Ludacris performing at the Gallatin County Fair last July. But sticking to rap, when it comes to Tim Sheehy, he is not like us. He doesn't respect our people, our religion, our women, our history, our land. But maybe the religion thing, because when it comes to him and Trump, it's all about narcissism and civic religion. But let's start with his comments about our original Montanans. I'm not going to do a lot of self flagellating and condemnation of the fact that white people settled Montana. Mary Wells Yates, Granny Yates, a prominent pioneer woman in Montana history, known for her resilience and 13 journeys across the plains between Missouri and Montana, the boss of the trains due to her leadership and determination. She settled in Gallatin Valley in the mid 19th century. My dad, Bud Lilly, is descended from her. These people, they built the railroads, they farmed the land. These settlers navigated challenges such as American Indian resistance, scarce resources, and the demands of frontier life. Their determination laid the foundation for Montana's development as they established towns, trade routes, and agricultural systems, transforming the region despite the risks and sacrifices involved. However, I would absolutely have to acknowledge the devastating impact of westward expansion on indigenous populations, like the forced removal, broken treaties, violent conflicts that resulted in significant population decline and cultural disruption. At best, it's a civil suit acknowledging as historical and potentially ongoing cultural manslaughter. At worst, it is genocide. The current population of Montana is 1,122 whatever thousand people. Of that, about 6.5% of this population is native or from the Assiniboine, Blackfeet, Chippewa, Cree, Crow, Gros Kootenai, Little Shell Chippewa, Northern Cheyenne, Ponderay, Salish, and Sioux tribes. This amounts to more than 72,000 Montanans of tribal descent. Basically, the third biggest city in Montana. Not metro area population, but city proper. So we go Billings, Missoula, and then this city of all natives, if that were to happen. It's kind of muddying because many of Montana's natives live in those cities, but I think you get my point. It's a huge voting bloc. Not just a plurality, but a majority of Montana Indians vote Democratic. Yes, their numbers dipped a bit in 2022, and getting out to vote has always been tough in rural areas, like in Montana's many reservations. But if you look in the counties that vote Democratic in elections, it's always the reservation counties that are deep blue and the college towns plus Butte that vote blue. Glacier County, home of the Blackfeet Reservation, voted 70% for Steve Bullock in 2022 or 2020, the Democratic Senate race. Interestingly, the second highest Democratic vote getting county was Silver Bow County, the city of Butte, which at 64% for Bullock in that election had more Democratic support than even granola ass jam band and barefoot vegan weddings, Missoula County. I don't know if that's because it's a historically Union strong county. The same high numbers were reported in Deer Lodge County with Anaconda, or if it's because Dem reps that day they emptied out the Tuesday morning Uptown Butte bars and Harrison Avenue gas station casinos to bust those voters with promises of 10 high bourbon shooters. Back in 2001, former Montana State Bobcats coach Mick Durham was quoted in an article of the New York Times as part of a story about the hurdles faced by Indian athletes trying to enter Division I college sports. He said, quote, "It seems like the reservation is their comfort zone more than it would be for an inner city kid," end quote. Quote, "To me, I just think that they get the government check and they stay. I don't know. I guess it's the way they're raised," end quote. He took a perp walk for this, and he did walk it back, saying, quote, "The discussion I had with that reporter revolved around illustrating stereotypes and perceptions that might be held by some, but not my beliefs. A very narrow portion of that conversation made it into print," end quote. I don't know. It just seems a lot like how Papa John got fired by Papa John's for saying the full on ER ending N word on a call about how you shouldn't say the N word. Or like when Trump says, "people are saying," when really it's only him saying it. Durham was a perpetual C student as far as coaching goes, having a long leash for rising just above mediocrity, with an extended tenure as Bobcats head coach, though he only got them to like one March Madness. I think it was in 1996. Now, you wouldn't hear an inflammatory comment on natives in Montana coming from a white person to this degree outside of the shit kicking bars of white small town Montana, so at the time, this was quite the black eye for the state. Until old slick Tim Sheehy comes along. Sheehy did not respond when the Rocky Mountain Tribal Leaders Council asked him to apologize in early September for some comments. The council represents 11 tribes and First Nations in the US and Canada. In a debate with Tester asked him to apologize for these comments, but like Trump with the draft or taxes, or with me with responsibilities in my 20s, he dodged it. And while Durham made a ham handed attempt to diagnose his frustration of recruiting and retaining talented indie basketball players from a life on the res to like White World and MSU at Bozeman in the 90s, Tim Sheehy spares any subtlety. Per report with the Charcoosta News, the official publication of the Flathead Indian Reservation, Sheehy can be heard at a November 6, 2023 campaign fundraiser in Shelby commenting on his relationship with tribal members on the Crow Reservation. In the clip, Sheehy says he ropes and brands with Crow members and that it's, quote, "a great way to bond with other Indians while they're drunk at 8 a.m., end quote. This was said after stating that one of his ranching partners is a Crow member. Sheehy made similar comments at a Hamilton campaign event on November 10 last year, 2023, telling audience members that he rode in the Crow Fair parade. Quote, "They'll let you know when they like you or not. If Coors Light cans flying by your head, they respect that," end quote. See, there's two problems here. Principally, the actual comments, but secondarily, you can tell he's really feeling himself for this joke, and it's become his crutch, like for his anecdotes. It's told in the audio two different times, and I am a betting man, and I would bet minus 100 that he's told this horseshit anecdote at every fucking Trump stop. Finally, in separate events in Superior and Helena, Sheehy mimicked Crow tribal members that call him White Boy and throw Coors cans at his head when he misses a double heel shot at their rodeo. Listen, it's not like this is ancient history like someone dug up an old tweet from 2007 and applied that to 2024 dynamics. This was last year, fully in the Senate race window. Insulting a voting block of 70,000 people by saying this would be like calling Olive Butte, Town Pump, Ashtray, Diverville, or Great Falls, Dollar Tree, Shoplifterton, or Kalispell, the "we're not Nazis, but we sort of get it" Ville, or Bozeman, the "sure we love Mexican and Asian food, but just not Mexicans or Asians in our town" Berg. Or finally, calling Billings, home of the face tattoo and unpaid child support. See, I would never say that. I've never, but if I did, when I trash Butte or Great Falls, I can play with them because I'm not running for Senate. I'm not running for Senate with implications of altering American politics for at least a generation. I'm also being cheeky because I genuinely like those cities. I like Butte. I went to college with good kids from there. Casa Grande's restaurant is Bozeman quality good at Butte prices. I love hiking to the Virgin Mary statue every summer as a tribute to my departed mother. I once played in a charity softball event on an Anaconda team against a Butte team, and that very narrowly avoided resulting in a melee. It's just a great town. Salt of the earth, lunch pail, workaday types. I'm also not punching down, unlike millionaire douchebag out of stater making racist comments about the OG Montanans. There's nothing cheeky about racism, especially from this cornball walking Drakkar Noir bottle if that bottle were filled with the personality of a classless nouveau riche outsider and not affordable teenage cologne from the 2000s. It just seems that Sheehy genuinely has contempt for Montana's American Indians. I don't know. Maybe it's the karma that Sheehy is likely to win, and people like me, white Montanans, are decrying that out of staters are changing the fabric of our way of life. I get the historical connection, but this is our state now. We can reconcile as modern Montanans of all colors with the sordid past in relation to treatment of our tribal peoples, and we can move forward together. Or we can sell it off to the highest bidder, to the scum that saw season one of Yellowstone during COVID and said, hey, that can be me. Let's talk education for a second. Tim Sheehy lives on a ranch outside of Bozeman and he homeschools his kids. Now, I may lack some soft skills that cause me to give up on the daily Wordle after like 2 tries, but I know for a damn fact that as a product of the Bozeman school system and the Montana University system, that we have some of the finest schools and teachers in the country. I learned the term indefatigable from a 10th grade English teacher, for Christ's sake. You know what else persists tirelessly? The fucking presumption that homeschool parents without a teaching degree or experience have the ability to deliver an education on par with qualified teachers with many years studying the concept of delivering education, deep diving into educational philosophy and pedagogy, and having the ability to build rapport, trust, and support to be a highly effective teacher and educator to students. And like this is in one subject that you would do that, not an entire curriculum of multiple subjects across multiple years. Some incredibly complex subjects like chemistry or a foreign language. Show me a parent, homeschool parent, who can crush instruction on both chemical calculations and a Spanish subjunctive, and I'll show you a liar. Are there teachers that phone it in, half-assing a lesson plan or throwing kids on computers without direct instruction or strong behavior management? Yeah. Is there bad admin and bullying concerns? Sure. But providing structured learning, socialization with peers, access to extracurricular activities, and exposure to diverse ideas, peoples, and views, and having resources like libraries, labs, sports facilities. I don't know. I guess that pales in comparison to these click-through, non-standardized, ideologically biased lessons, or just homemade homeschool programs. Pivoting away from that a little, Tim Sheehy is not a woman. He supports a national abortion ban, and Mr. Small Government thinks the American government has a right to oversee a woman's own agency over her own reproductive rights. Tester, in contrast, says, let's not live in a handmaiden's tale, and he supported the Women's Health Protection Act, which allows for medically necessary abortions. It's also the Montana way of life of saying, hey, Mr. Government, leave me the hell alone. But don't tell GOP women, voting women in Montana that a vote for Sheehy is actually a vote against their own interests because, I don't know, what are they thinking? There's people 3 or 4 states to the south of us, giant western states coming across the border that are going to bolster our economy. Yeah, let's vote against that. And you know what? My personal mark hasn't been left on this state, really. Okay. But my dad fought until his dying day to secure rights for public access to fly fishing. He was integral in the creation of Warriors in Quiet Waters for veterans therapy through fly fishing, as well as securing a site in Logan for veterans fishing access. Oh, and like the whole revolutionizing the entire sport thing. But you may not be sentimental about the environmental necessity of public access and how many of the best fishing in Montana spots, literally some of the best places in the entire world for this, are located on public lands or public access points, or how public access is correlated with deep conservation efforts and outreach. But how, if the sentimentality of fly fishing and public access for hunting and hiking is not important to you, but how about it like fly fishing for the economy, for instance? Something like 4.3% of Montana's economy last year was based on fly fishing. It's more than any other state by far. Colorado recently banned walking upstream beyond fishing access sites. Wyoming has it so you can't even drop anchor while fishing a public stream or river. Montana could be next. You know how that happened? political connections, and NIMBY private landowners and special interests restricting public access because they don't understand a state as special as Montana is something to behold. It isn't meant to be owned, developed, or shut off, to be preserved and shared by the public. And honestly, it's not so much about my distaste for Tim Ducey. It's that John Tester has been effective as well. Since being elected in 2006, he's achieved several key accomplishments: veterans advocacy, securing vital funding for rural communities through improving roads, broadband access, and water systems, campaign finance reform, healthcare advocacy, and finally, agricultural and conservation efforts. But really, Tester is the real fucking deal, okay? Every greasy spoon diner in small town Montana has a guy with Tester's combine size spare tire and his belt buckle that holds it up, doing the work of 10 buckles like Leonidas at Thermopylae. The high and tight haircut he has, it emphasizes that he's a public servant. He doesn't have time for $300 haircuts at a salon where you need to make an appointment, like the couture coiffure men's cut that probably she gets. That's petty, but you know what? Tester gets a 12-minute, $12 high and tight. He probably gets from the same lady he's been going to for years, while the oil on his international harvester gets changed. It's pragmatic. It's functional. It says, you know what? I'm here for you. Let me shake your hand. But likely, Tester's shaking your hand with his left hand because his other hand, he's a hands in the dirt kind of guy. And he lost 60% of his fingers in a farming accident because he's the real deal. The only thing Tim Sheehy lost is maybe his valor because he may be lying about being shot in Afghanistan, allegedly. And that gets me to the Tim Sheehy veterans point. I'm no veteran, and I'm not here to besmirch anyone who served. If we had a draft, I'd step up, but no, I don't find myself fantasizing about being in battle or having quirky Brad Pittisms of cynical battle-worn bluntness masking vulnerability. So, I respect Sheehy's service, but I just don't respect the story of him discharging his weapon. Also, my dad was a veteran, wounded, Purple Heart. I know other wounded in battle, Purple Heart guys too. You know what they don't do? Fucking brag about it. Just saying, if Trump likes people who weren't captured, I like my veterans not boasting about their wounds, which may or may not have been received duplicitously in Afghanistan, or maybe discharging it in Glacier Park, all for political points. The longtime Montana Senator Mike Mansfield has two quotes that I really admire. He's known for saying, quote, Montana voters are the most independent in the nation. They're tough, they're hard to fool, and they don't take to being told how to vote, end quote. It's a quote that reflects his admiration for Montana voters' critical thinking and independence, qualities Mansfield believed made us exceptional decision makers, prioritizing integrity over party lines. And most famously, or maybe more famously, Mansfield said, quote, Montana voters have a habit of sending Democrats to Capitol Hill and Republicans to the White House, end quote. This quote reflects the independent and pragmatic nature of Montana voters, who often split their support across party lines, valuing a balanced approach to governments over strict partisan loyalty. Montana Republicans aren't what you are, Tim. There was a reason why we were one of the first states in the Mountain West to have bipartisan support for both weed and gay marriage, that we send Republicans to the White House and Democrats to Capitol Hill and to Helena. It's a libertarian type of conservatism, not Bible Belt, abortion denying, Ten Commandments in the classroom, evangelical civic religion crap. Montana GOP has historically been a leave us alone with our weed and our guns and our hunting and fishing access. In short, Tim, you represent the ultimate Montana poser. You want to come here and cosplay conservative Super Montana? You can't even do that right. You don't even Republican correctly. Why isn't former Republican Governor Mark Roscoe supporting you? Roscoe even actively endorsed your opponent, Tester, saying he tirelessly set about to serve all Montanans, Democrats, and Republicans alike. John has, without exception, executed his duties with an elevated focus on the public good. Where is Denny Reberg's endorsement? Why aren't any moderate Republicans or old establishment Republicans on the campaign trail with you? I'm reminded of a maxim in Spanish that goes, Dime con quién andas y te diré quién eres. Tell me who your friends are, and I'll tell you who you are. Look, I know I left Bozeman in 2006 to go to school in Missoula. In my program, program, journalism. I bopped around East Coast, South Korea, Arizona before coming home. I saw the transition happen in Bozeman. Slowly at first, breakfast joints downtown playing house music, Cactus Records having to relocate to that weird strip mall across from what we used to call the main mall. Okay, I saw the explosion in home prices and quote gentrification unquote of Bozeman and how Bridger Bowl was the slept on, semi bullied ski hill, with only a few days out of the year with lines, but now the line of cars to the hill on a powder day starts on 7th Avenue. Returning to Montana and the Bozeman area in 2001, I saw the shameful development of the blocks of RVs doubling as homes. Those license plates are all Montana plates, by the way. Montana was reasonable. You could be conservative and vote for Obama. You could be progressive and consider voting for McCain. Bipartisan support for environmental policies was the name of the game. But this carpetbagging Sheehy represents the new blood of phony Montanans, not the hot yoga classes and latte loving neo Bozeman 2010 liberals. Conservatives moving here are Bible thumping, coal rolling, flag, faith, family conservatives that really don't even align with traditional Montana conservative values. Montana was a game of friendly poker. Some of us were down. Maybe a couple people at the table had a chip lead. Everyone thought they had a chance. Even the guy who almost lost his ass, they'd win a few rounds, and at least got their buy-in money back. Or maybe they feel like they could. Then along comes Tim Sheehy and his ilk, pony up to the table, buying every hand despite not having the cards. But with a giant pile of chips, the game is no longer fun, competitive, or ours. In this election for Senate, you're voting for a person, not for perfect. Tester, he has his shortcomings. Some of his ads have been perfectly really cringy, but he represents all Montanans, not special interest people that look like they'd put you on finger hold and take a call if your kid wanted to meet them at Winco. Tim Sheehy is the type of guy who'd give you the finger guns and say, "Thanks, Chief," after he forecloses on your grandma's house, and then hops into his Escalade, bops his head to that abominable radioactive song. At this point, I don't know, maybe I'm talking out of my ass, but I'm not even sure which poison pill I'd take if I had to choose between Tester losing and Harris losing. At least with Trump, he may be gone in 4 years, best case scenario. We evoke Section 4 of the 25th Amendment, while Douchey and the reddening of Montana may last far longer than that. I don't know. I feel like it's maybe your boss and the area manager, or as a former teacher, this Sophie's choice of working for a great superintendent and a horrible principal at your school, or vice versa. The bad principal affects your day to day life in a more intimate and onerous way, and the top brass make decisions that can upset your apple cart, but maybe not on such a personal daily level. Being choked off from hiking, fishing, or hunting on formerly public lands and seeing my bank account diminish because of higher local taxes hits me on a more profound level than a Trump gaffe and a salute to a North Korean general. But I don't know. I say this entrenched the night before election in Tim Sheehy disdain. Admittedly, I could have an editorial saying that the complete opposite starting tomorrow, as having both of them would win, would be like catching syphilis the day your house burned down. In short, Tim, you may have property in Montana, but you'll never be one of us. And perhaps that doesn't matter. You're a localized puppet of a national scheme to change laws locally, but the GOP knows they won't win another popular vote again, so they need to cook the books. Send people like you in. And like Drake cosplaying an Atlanta trap rapper for years and finally getting bodied by Kendrick in the culture last summer, you're not like us, Tim. And in Fitzgerald's Great Gatsby, Jay Gatsby, a self made millionaire, tries to win a girl and enter her elite social circle. Despite his wealth, Gatsby remains an outsider and will never get the girl because he grew up poor. And despite his best efforts, lavish parties, and masking his modest upbringing with an old money inflection, ultimately, a character, Tom Buchanan, says to Gatsby in the novel that Gatsby is, quote, Mr. Nobody from nowhere, end quote. And no matter how much you're roping, no matter how much racism and hobnobbing with ranchers, you can't hide an outsider heart behind a cowboy hat. Tim, you're somebody from somewhere. It just isn't here. Vote Tester tomorrow.